And now we're live streaming. So hi everyone, this is the quality key review for the month of March 2021 calendar year. As a reminder, this is a public live stream, so please be mindful of information flow as well. With that, we'll go ahead and get started with questions.
Mac, under lowlights, Roman numeral 2, it says we encountered flaky specs. Which KPI should we be looking at to see that? Or was it an insight that came from several of them?
This is the master pipeline success rate. So my apologies, I did not link it. I'll link it right now. So they're both captured in the wins. It increased the month of April, but we did also encounter some challenges here. Kyle, you want to add to the color? Feel free to speak up.
Nothing else to add.
Got it. Thanks.
I'm going to go ahead and vocalize Craig's comments. So the driver of increase in community contributions in April and the actions that we took. Kyle, you want to answer to that point?
Yeah, so a lot of this is just automation. We've been adding, one thing that we did, because this trend really started, I think, back in February, is we added type automation to open MRs, and that started to boost the number of MRs that are labeled with type labels in general. So we had better attribution overall, which increased feature label attribution of these MRs that would generally go unlabeled. MR coaches also took a look at how we could streamline the process for product teams, so for the development organization, and they started applying the same sort of process that we do with unlabeled issues, where we would apply a group and a type label so that teams can prioritize those themselves a little bit more, and we're seeing good results with that as well. We're always looking for more opportunities to leverage more automation with group and type labels, looking at the Tanuki Stan ML and how we can extend that to type labels as well.
Cool, thank you. And Christopher has a comment there as well on seeing review and maintaining perspective.
Yeah, it's just more of an observation that we definitely noticed that as well on the development side, because obviously, a lot of contributions come to the development team to be reviewed as maintainers. So the fact that with that percentage of what we were developing ourselves versus community contributions is starting to go back towards where it was historically been is a pretty exciting sign.
Thank you for that. There are no more comments. I'll move on to 6. I'll vocalize for Craig as well. So he asked us to connect directly with Christine and Ellen to discuss gearing ratio, and then I will gladly take up that offer. So thank you, Craig. Number 7, Stella.
Thanks. I was actually just reading through and trying to figure out what were these S1 bugs, and you're right, I could find the link there. Just a quick observation, having spent 30 more seconds on it, it looks like some hadn't been touched for about a year, and the mech went in and said hey, is this in the right spot? So especially since it is such a small list, which is good to see, and also was surprising when I thought about it. It seems like there may be conversation we could even have within this group or probably other forums around just what are these things, how are they moving, if they are top priority, and get a little bit more insight into that at times. So
yes, thank you for that. We aim to go in and remind people to make sure if the severity is correct or not, and adjust accordingly. There's also a few that will be closed out. The team picked on it. Also, other complexity where a bug has been filed for a long time, but it recently bubbled up and identified as S1. Due to us embracing a low level of shame, we don't close it and create a new one. We just apply an S1 and then, hey, we just have to fix this now. So there are some nuances there as well. We'll try to get better at that. The number is really small, so I do want to get this closed out and get progress in the next key review. I think we can get a good handle on it overall.
Thanks, Mac. Sid, you're next, and number 8.
Yeah, thanks for tracking the age of the open bugs. That's a great metric. There's a proposal to track the age of both open and closed bugs in a given month. Why does the age of closed bugs matter? We figured out earlier that that can be all over the place. So I don't see that. I don't understand why we're going back to that.
So this is the part of the challenge of the accounting method, Sid, where if we close something, if we want to count for that, with the current age of open bugs, if we close something, that it will get removed from the historical data. That was a technical challenge we discussed a few key reviews ago. And this is an idea to see how we can capture the score of the overall age to account for both the age of bugs that we for the open month, we capture the age of bugs opened and also the age of bugs that were closed. So capturing both sides of the coin. This is still a discussion, so we're not gearing immediately to work on it, and it's here for your feedback. So please do provide us your insights there.
Yeah, if my initial take is that we will run into the same problems again if we do this, but happy to look at a proposal with some examples.
Okay, so with that feedback, I think we will improve the current average age of open bugs and change it to monthly as the next iteration. And if we have a model to show the next time, then we will act on it, but we won't immediately switch because it seemed that would be too much of a correction, a regression backwards. That's okay.
Thanks. What do you mean we change it to monthly?
The current chart is on a daily basis, the time. So we want to aggregate that to a monthly visualization.
Okay, that makes sense.
Polish.
Thanks.
If you do it daily, Mech, then you probably don't run into this problem. But if you do it monthly, you do have to count the bugs that are closed in the month, because otherwise, statistically, you've missed all the bugs that are closed. Like, let's say we had a number of bugs that were closed within one day; those would never get counted, which is what I think you're trying to avoid if you just look at only open and days associated with that. So that's the case that I see is the reason why you want to count both bugs closed in the month as well as open bugs that are outstanding from that perspective.
Thanks for that. We'll pull you into the discussion there as well. I think that's a valuable feedback.
Ideally, we have lots of bugs that are getting closed in the same month that they're opened. Majority. If that's the case, then that's a better statistic too.
Cool. We can move on to point 9. Sid, the bug service level objective attainment.
Yeah, I think that is suffering from the same drawbacks as measuring closed bugs. So I propose we deprecate that metric because it can go up and down. Like if you're doing the right thing, closing out all bugs, it's going to go up. So that doesn't make sense to me.
Thank you, Sid. We can remove it from the performance indicators and lessen the focus there. And if people are interested, they just go into Sisense and pull up the data. Does that sound good to you, Sid?
Yeah, I would remove it from Sisense too, because like it's taken us 6 months to realize this ourselves, and it's very counterintuitive. So I would just remove it completely, but removing it from the performance indicators is all I can ask for. So thank you.
Thank you. Sid, number 10.
Yeah, I think it's really hard for us to kind of get the time to successful tests kind of down. That's tough, but maybe we can try to prioritize tests that are more likely to fail, so that if it fails, you get that feedback faster. I think we discussed in the past to have a measuring time to fail, kind of measuring how long it took before the first test failed, so the developer has actionable feedback. Is this something that we can start measuring?
I believe it's in the video, but I may not have added in the written in agenda. We do have a measure for this. Let me link it in point.
Yeah, I did not review the video, so that's on me.
So we do have the average time to failure of our pipelines. It improved a little bit in April. We see a bit of an uptick in May. Given the data lag, we think this was smooth out. And if Kyle wants to update anything here, feel free to override me.
Great.
One thing to note, I would say one thing to note, this is full pipeline duration instead of like first build failure time, because that's what we want to gear on. Is we wanted to start gearing on that as we do more experiments around playing around with short circuiting the pipeline. That's what I would say.
I'm not completely understanding. It's not called pipeline duration right now, right?
It's how long it takes for the pipeline to finish when there's a failed pipeline, I would say. So with needs, we could have a job that fails 4 minutes into the pipeline, but there could be jobs running 30 minutes later, I would say.
Okay.
After.
But I think the relevant thing, if I were a developer, I just want to see that first fail test, and that give me an idea where to focus. I don't really care that what happens after that.
Yeah, that's I'll say that's something we can definitely look at a little bit closer. When we've experimented with that, we've gotten feedback on both sides that they want to have the full set of feedback versus short circuiting everything that runs at that first failure.
Yeah,
So
look, I'm not saying, I think what you're proposing is at the first failure, stop everything else. I'm not proposing that either. Like, no, I want all the errors. That would be much better. We already measure how long it takes us to run the entire pipeline. So already measuring that. The idea of this is, hey, I wanna know if there's a problem. Just knowing that this is not green really helps. And the way we're going to improve this is by scheduling tests that are more likely to fail early, right? Run the test that failed the last time first instead of 40 minutes in. That will help both bring this time down, and it will help developers. After that, stop everything? No, I don't. Keep running, like give me all the failures. So it's really average time to first failure that I'm after, because I think that will optimizing that will lead us to schedule the tests that are likely to fail, which will kind of improve the feedback cycle for the developer.
Okay.
I think that's great. I think we'll rename it to average time to first failure and make it clear, and then adjust the accounting.
That'd be great. Plus, like we've talked about this now a couple of times, and maybe even kind of explain the rationale for the test and explain like, hey, what we want to achieve here is that we schedule, let's set a goal. Just schedule the first test that the test that failed the last time, schedule those first. If we can do that, that would already be a giant help to our developers, in my opinion.
Thank you, Sid. We'll take that feedback to heart and then adjust it accordingly.
Cool, thanks.
Hey, I just had a quick question on this topic. Do folks know if we send any notifications on first failure, or if we wait until the full pipeline has failed before we send emails and push notifications? It might be a feature to look into.
We generated to do no emails is my understanding.
Okay, I'll open up an issue on that just to get a discussion started.
Great one, Josh. And Shadows, maybe you can cut out this conversation from the YouTube and put it at that metric.
Let's move on to 11, Eric.
Yeah, excuse me. I saw in the highlights the percent of MRs from our community was listed as needs target, and there was a suggestion of 15%. Looks like we're kind of currently at 15%, although that's a very recent steep achievement curve, but suggest we just double that in the interest of ambition and call a target 30%.
I think we could act on that. I'll take that to an action item.
Okay, and if the most recent 15% turns out to be an aberration, we can prove that over time and lower it. But I think 30% for now feels right. Thanks. And then 12 is a more general question. Driving performance of the application came up today as a request from sales in an e-group meeting. Sort of thinking about that, I know we've got some metrics to find. Most of those are over in the development department key review, not here. However, I know quality thinks about this a lot. And in the quality department, we have the new engineering analysis team. So kind of asking a broader question of like, what in your all opinions is the biggest gaps we have in terms of measuring performance so we can manage it more effectively?
So I can start with the current things that we have. We have the layering facet of the bugs on performance bugs and timings for those. We also have the performance metrics that is tracked in development as well, but happy to facilitate other tracking to make it clear and more impactful in this work stream.
Are the performance bugs mostly front end, or is it mixture of benchmarks for APIs, API requests, or?
They're a mixture of benchmarks for API requests and some front end, like site speed, for example. And we have the timings described in the handbook for this with the severity levels. We do have a list of performance bugs that we drive regularly, and we can come up with metrics on time to close of performance bugs if it is useful. And that could be one option to explore.
So is it really just, we kind of have these two categories of things. We have, when you say tracking of performance bugs, does that mean tracking like the SLA of completion for performance bugs, or is it specific benchmarks that we're measuring and how we're doing against that benchmark?
The current proposal I mentioned is to track the time to close of these performance bugs. It's already tracked in the overall bug, so it's a more drill down view. If we want something more impactful, we could explore another option that is not just measuring time to close of these issues, these performance bugs.
Okay, so like the notes in 12C say, I just want to make sure we captured this correctly, what you said. So you said we have, and you have layering of performance API and front end timings. And then the proposal, but something we don't have today, would be time to close of performance related bugs. So that would be coming, but not what we have today.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm pulling up the definitions right now.
So I assume that in addition, what we propose is track more in the category of the prior items, where more API benchmarks, more front end benchmarks.
Okay, I'll second that.
I think we have the stuff Grant does with the automated testing, right? And the test harness where we test APIs and we have a threshold or anything below that, anything that goes above that gets, the issues opened. And then have the site speed stuff. As far as I know, there's no automation around creating that. So it kind of requires like humans to look at it, I believe. I think we're then also we're working to get the real user monitoring data from Snowplow from Sisense into Grafana, whether real time or batch. So we can then start activating on that and incorporating that into error budgets. So we have not only backend performance, but also front-end performance in there. So that's being worked on. I think this came up in the product key review yesterday. So it sort of fresh up in my mind. And then I think the one thing we're missing is some kind of front-end CI test to catch this stuff before it hits production. Because right now we've seen instances where something ships, like I think we had the editor get added to a bunch of pages, slowed a whole bunch of pages down. We didn't notice until we looked at site speed. It was like, wow, we have a whole bunch of we're a lot fewer percentage of pages meeting our LCP threshold. What happened? And then we had to go figure it out. So we did eventually catch it, but it made it to production for like 2 weeks before we noticed.
Thanks for the call, Josh.
Is sales making any differentiation between SaaS customers and self-hosted? I would like anecdotally, my reflection is that our self-hosted customers are really concerned about API performance and integration, whereas our SaaS solution is all front end. But I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, it was brought up in the context of .com today, but I did ask that clarification. I'm like, are we talking about both? And the answer is yes. And I think we could probably assume that it's going to be mostly self-managed. So yeah, maybe that means we should be more biased towards the API.
Well, yeah, I mean, Matt can correct me if I'm wrong, but self-managed, we have like the reference architectures. So if it's about dialing down based on the reference architectures, that's really a different discussion than SaaS, just from a scalability perspective.
Yeah, I mean, in that sense, you could solve any given prospect's performance concerns by just using the next reference architecture, and everything would suddenly seem faster for the same amount of load. But we have to, yeah, I think we should probably, I don't know if this is product or quality or development, but work with sales to develop a sense of like, well, what are they hearing? Can we extract a series of trends from that? And then how can we measure those trends and then improve on them? Because otherwise we're going to be just playing whack-a-mole with this customer says this one point is slow, we address it, and we can do that, and we do that, but it would be nice if we could kind of like identify some bottlenecks and address those bottlenecks and then serve many customers, batches of customers well with, be more efficient with our effort.
Yeah, and if it's a difference between us being more efficient on existing hardware versus just beefing up, like those are two different vectors, right? That could be solved.
Yeah, I think vertically scaling an instance or the reference architectures, I think we just have to kind of put that out of mind. I think we have to focus on being as efficient as we can on the given, on whatever it is. But there's complexity there because there's many different reference environments. So I think we have to kind of like identify what are the trends, what are the hotspots of performance, and get a sense of that from sales. What are customers and prospects typically seeing? Can we get a prioritized list of that?
Do we have a contact point in sales so we can reach out and get more color or terrain on what they want to see?
I'll ask Mike McBride that, and we'll get whether it's customer success or whatever it is. I'll get you that information so you can start asking questions. And I think ultimately, like there may be no single. I think it's likely there's no single person in sales that actually could provide that answer. I think we have to do the survey, and we will probably have to find those trends because I think, they're arranged regionally by segment and whatnot. So I think each person we talk to will likely have a piece of the puzzle, and we'll have to determine holistically the most effective thing to do.
Got it. Thank you. I'm thinking of ways to spin this around because given the focus of large MRs, large diffs, we could give metric that surrounds that improvement in those areas. So these are the improvements we made towards MRs, API that will help with the rendering. So more specialization in those data focus would help too.
Yeah. So that's a good thing to highlight. We already know anecdotally and through SUS that MRs are attracting attention. I think in lieu of having better information, whatever effort we have on it, let's focus there. And then we can update or add to those instincts by doing what I'm suggesting and talking to sales. But we don't have to wait to do anything related to performance. We're comfortable spending all of that on MRs until we know better.
Thank you.
Having a partner with you, Mike, and Eric and anyone on this. Anoop's also been doing some research and commenting on some issues around the same lines of trying to balance the focus on MRs. And the other ones he is keen on is like time to start runners, like time to pick up jobs and run them. There's another area that he's kind of heard from customers on his own. So maybe we can all compare notes here.
Yeah, a big theme right now I'm hearing a lot is so-called QoS, like quality of service. Like people might be reading articles right now about like why Apple's new processors are so fast. And one answer is that they are faster. The other is that they've prioritized the sort of perception of speed, the things people encounter a lot, and that makes them feel substantially faster. And I think there's sort of an equivalent exercise we could do here. And MRs is one, but there's probably a series of things that come after that would have a disproportionately large impact on the, I don't know what the right term is, perception of performance or perceived performance or something like that.
Sounds great. Thank you. And I believe that's the end of the agenda. Thank you very much for all your time and feedback. We'll see you next time. Thank you.